Now, a clinical trial of puberty blockers for children has been paused, I'm hoping stopped for good, over the concerns for the participants. Does common sense win? Remember, some of these children were going to be young as 10.
Yes, the medicines regulator warned it should have a minimum age limit of 14 due to what it called the unquantified risk of long-term biological harms.
The Department for Health and Social Care says the trial will only go ahead if the expert scientific and clinical evidence find it safe and necessary.
Well, the Conservative MP for Reigate, Rebecca Paul, joins us now. Rebecca, I know you've been a staunch campaigner on this. This is obviously a moment of relief. It does beg the question, why on earth was this trial approved in the first place? 220 children who were going to undergo experimental drug use, essentially. Surely this is the end of it now, not just a pause.
Good morning. I completely agree. So I absolutely welcome the pause, but I want to see this trial stopped. It doesn't make any sense at all. And I think it really raises some important questions about how on earth regulators, the medicine regulator, signed this off. And now they're raising significant fundamental concerns with the safety of this trial. And these are not new concerns. We have been flagging these concerns around the fact that this will make potentially 226 children infertile for months and months. And it feels like they finally listened. But why now? Why didn't they raise this originally when they did the original sign-off? So I think we need to be looking at the whole process and what has been going on.
And even in that statement from the Department of Health, Rebecca, they're talking about 14. That's too young too, isn't it?
I agree. So my position is that no child should be have their puberty blocked. So, that is my position on it. There are others that...
18 minimum.
Absolutely. So I'm very much, if adults, they can be free to make their own decisions about what they do, but a child should never have, a healthy child should never have their puberty blocked because it will impact their fertility, it will impact their sexual functioning. It looks like it could impact cognitive function too.
Bone development?
Bone density, absolutely right. So these are well-established harms of these drugs. These are dangerous drugs. They are only used they're licensed for precocious puberty, and that's a risk-benefit analysis. Obviously, precocious puberty comes with certain risks. And therefore, it makes sense to take those drugs for a very short period. They're not used to block puberty, they're just used to delay it for a short period. But this trial is basically to look at entirely blocking puberty in children so that they essentially never develop into, fully developed adults.
And of course, proponents of the drug say that you can pause puberty and then you can, go on to stop taking the drugs and have puberty as normal. In reality, that's not the case. 90% of people who take puberty blockers go on to take sex-crossing hormones. So it is a huge, huge fundamental change. Wes Streeting, on the whole, seems to have been quite sensible on all of this, but he did sign off that trial. What was that about? Is he now going to apologise, perhaps?
It's really interesting. So I do think the Health Secretary does fundamentally care about the safety and health of children, and we saw that when he continued the ban that the Conservatives put in place around puberty blockers. So I have a huge amount of respect for him, and he has said he was uncomfortable with the trial. However, the problem I have with the Health Secretary is he is essentially passing the buck to Baroness Cass. Politicians can't do that. I'm sorry, when you're...
She's the one who did the major review.
She did the major review and identified a number of issues with the approach to the care of these children with gender dysphoria, and she included, out of many recommendations, one which was, ideally to have more data, hence a clinical trial. But fundamentally, it's for politicians to weigh all of that up. There is no onus on them to do every single recommendation in a report. When does that ever happen? So actually, the Health Secretary, ultimately, the buck does stop with him.
Yeah.
And if I was the Health Secretary, I would be asking key questions to the MHRA and the HRA about how on earth this got signed off when there are significant concerns around making 226 children infertile. This is not a minor point of detail. This is a fundamental safety issue. How did we get to a place where the medicine regulator was happy with that, and now they're not? I'd love to know what's gone on in the last few months. What has happened? What has changed?
And can we just ask you, just finally, an issue? It's Kemi Baden was talking about the estate student loans. It's a real problem. Talk to someone sitting here. A lot of my colleagues, they are in huge debt. Sometimes they're paying off the money from their students, but the debt's getting bigger and bigger. What are the Tories going to do about it, bearing in mind they screwed it up in the first place?
Well, so the Conservatives absolutely recognise the importance of aspiration, and it is completely unfair what's happening with student loans. Our young people shouldn't be punished in this way for wanting to get on in life and learn and actually contribute to our country. So Kemi Badenoch and Laura Trott, they've obviously launched their plans around this to address this, to bring those punitive interest rates down so that our young people aren't hindered by this approach. You know, I went to university and there was just about grants left when I went, but I went when tuition fees were introduced, you know, by the Labour government. And, you know, I came out with significant debt, and I was quite fortunate that I went into a high-paying job and I could then pay it down. But actually, if you look at most of our young people, they're never going to pay these amounts off, and it's just going up and up and up. It's just completely unfair. So fundamental change is needed, and the Conservatives are going to address that and make the changes that are needed to support our young people.
Let's hope Bridget Phillipson makes some of those changes too. Just to say, I graduated in 2015. I had £50,000 worth of debt. I've been paying it off for 11 years, paid off £18,000. I now have £55,000 worth of debt.
Terrible.
Anyway, let's hope that gets...
It's a scandal. It's a scandal.
It is.